Welcome to the Assistant Finswimming Coach course. The education program for Finswimming coaches consists of 3 courses: the Assistant Finswimming Coach, which is the current course, the Finswimming Coach, and the Senior Finswimming Coach. The course objectives are to learn the basics of Finswimming, the structure of Finswimming in the UK and internationally, the equipment used for Finswimming, the basics of coaching principles, the basics of Finswimming techniques, the health and safety of swimmers at training sessions, and restricted activities. What is Finswimming? Finswimming is an underwater sport consisting of 4 disciplines involving swimming with the use of fins. The disciplines include using a snorkel with a monofin or bifins on the surface, and swimming underwater with a monofin whilst either holding one's breath or using open circuit scuba diving equipment. Events exist over distances similar to swimming competitions for both swimming pool and open water venues. Competitions at the world and continental levels are organised by the Confédération Mondiale des Activités Subaquatiques, or CMAS. History of the sport. The sport developed in Europe following the widespread availability of the first rubber fins during the 1930s. Luigi Ferraro, an Italian diving pioneer, is reported as the organizer of the first fin swimming competition in the sea in 1951, followed by a 100-kilometer ocean swim in 1955. The first competition in the Soviet Union was held during 1958. The first European Championship involved both Finswimming and underwater orienteering and was held under the title of the First European Championship of Subaquatics Technical at Angora, Italy, in August 1967. In 1969, the first European Finswimming Championship, separate of underwater orienteering, was held in Locarno, in Switzerland. The first World Championships were held in Hanover in Germany in 1976, followed by the inclusion of the sport in the inaugural World Games in Santa Clara in the USA in 1981. The first World Long Distance Championship was held in Paris, in France in 1988, followed by the first World Junior Championship in Hungary in 1989. The arrival of the monofin in the early 1970s led to all world records being broken by the end of the decade due to its increase in performance when used in lieu of bifins. In 2007, the first bifin races using CMAS homologated fins were held. Finswimming consists of the following 4 disciplines: surface, apnea, immersion, and bifins. Surface swimming is swimming on the surface of the water using a mask or goggles, a snorkel, and a monofin. Surface races in swimming pools are held for distances of 25, 50, 100, 200, 400, 800, and 1,500 meters for individual events, and 4x50, 4x100, and 4x200 meter relays for team events. Open water swimming also has various longer distances. Swimmers must remain on the surface of the water at all times for the duration of the race, except when starting or making turns, when an immersion is permitted for a distance of 15 meters.
It's probably a secret for each individual, but I tell you what, they will be all-out action. Aerobic and really anaerobic action here. They're sitting in place. The judges are ready. They've got, at the other end, of course, they've got to check that the turns are are absolutely legal as well. Here we go then. This is the men's 100 meters service, 15 meters before they break, and here they come. Look at this great work there by Max Poschardt in 4 at the moment. Karetsopoulos of Greece is also there. And nearest the camera, it's Pavel Kabanov. Kabanov really is surprising. Can he now come back to his former best? But here is Max Poschardt again in 4. Absolutely dynamic. It's Poschardt with Kabanov. Kabanov again, and in 7 it's Zurman who's also there. Zurman! My goodness me, it looks like Zurman has taken it. That was a huge surprise. It is. Well, Dmitry Zurman took out Poschardt, who was the early leader in lane 4. And of course, on Zurman's left shoulder was Kabanov, who really pushed him as well. But what a great performance by the youngster.
Apnea swimming is underwater swimming in a swimming pool using a mask or goggles, a monofin, and holding one's breath. Apnea races are held for 25 or 50 meters. A swimmer's face must be immersed for the duration of the race or they may face disqualification. Apnea races are not conducted in open water for safety and security reasons.
So when the start is done, very beautiful, look at that. Underwater views, distance 50 meters apnea women, I remind. That is without going out of the water, without breathing. And look at that, the preliminary results. So let's wait.
Immersion swimming with air cylinder is underwater swimming using a mask, monofin, and an underwater air cylinder carried in a swimming pool. While there are no requirements on how an air cylinder is carried, it cannot be exchanged or abandoned during a race. Immersion races are held for distances of 100 and 400 meters. A swimmer's face must be immersed in the water for the duration of the race or they risk disqualification. Immersion races are not conducted in open water for safety and security reasons.
As you've mentioned, the world champion, the defending world champion Cheng Chi is also the world record holder, 2 minutes 40.40 seconds.
Yes,
the world record was set 2 years ago as well at the World Championships in Greece.
Yeah, we will probably also have this rivalry between two Chinese Finswimmers. But you know, there was also a very interesting championship 3 years ago in Yantai when the current world record holder actually he starts fifth.
Within the world record split, though. After the 50 meters, it doesn't have to mean anything.
Well,
it's
actually, Riccardo
Campana.
Campagna, yes, from Italy, like I already said, last year he was second in Europe, so he's also a very serious fin swimmer. But to finish off with interesting final of this event 3 years ago in the World Championship, Cheng Chi, who is now the world record holder, he was leading like 300 meters, but he came 4th. In the last meters, Cheng Chi lost all the medals, and it was actually Denis Grubnik who came a 3rd. So incredible race we're going to see right now.
Campana is back on top.
Campana is still leading, yes.
At the previous turn, Campana and Grubnik had exactly the same time, and the difference is like less than 0.2 of a second. So
yes, and both Chinese are
exciting.
Both Chinese are behind the Europeans. It's for me it's unusual, but
Okay,
I'm
so
sure.
the last 100 meters.
I'm sure I told you
Sorry,
this.
last 200 meters of half a race. We are over the world record split, so yeah, the first 50 meters was maybe just a show of strength to see what's going on. But look at the battle between lanes number 5 and 6.
Yeah, Jean Botton now becomes the leader.
Exactly.
Yes, the world champion 3 years ago now is becoming first. But I told you the story about Cheng Chi. He's now 4th, but he lost in the last meters. Maybe he has power in the last 100. We got 125 meters left. Maybe he can return. But seems like Jean Botton.
Oh wow!
Seems like Jean Botton really wants to get the goal.
This reminds me of yesterday's race of Mikhailushkina. She took charge. Well, he didn't take charge from the beginning, but you know he's doing it on his own. Look at this. He seems to be powering away so much stronger. But we have a battle going on for the silver medal position between lanes number 3, where Denis Grubnik is, and lanes number 5, Riccardo Campana, the Italian. Are we going to see 2 European competitors on the medal podium this year?
Now we're going to see who will be out of the podium. Important 25 meters. Actually, it seems that the current world record hurdle is losing the podium here. So the world champion, Jean Bouton from China, second, Denis Grubnik from Ukraine, third.
I hope you can hear the Italians. They are over the moon. Riccardo Campana.
Yes, he came third.
Bifins is swimming on the surface of the water with a mask, snorkel, and a pair of fins using a front crawl stroke. Bifin races are held for distances of 25, 50, 100 and 200 meters in pools and various longer distances in open water such as 4 and 6 kilometers. Bifins was introduced in 2006. Swimmers must remain on the surface of the water at all times for the duration of the race except when starting or making turns, when an immersion of a distance of 15 meters is permitted.
We've got one without the cap, but the favourite, certainly Dmitry Seryakov, will be right in the middle. Here we go. This is 2 lengths of the pool. 41.4 held by Seryakov. And he gets a good start here. He is in lane 4. Nearer him is Cosino. Diego Cosino. A nice smooth start here. Who's going to get? Where are the splits? Let's have a look. They're coming close, and I have to say Seryakov again is in great shape. Seryakov, I think, as well as Gavrilim. Well, Cosino, isn't that interesting? Gavrilim, well, he's over in lane 1. Isn't that extraordinary? This is going to be an upset. Gavrilim with Garilov. Garilov comes through, but who can break now? Seryakov's coming back strongly, but it's going to be Gavrilov. Gavrilov has done it. Well, that is very, very... Dmitry Gavrilov of Belarus. My goodness me. Dmitry Gavrilov of Belarus. And that really is a spectacular performance from lane 2. Wow, you cannot believe that.
As of 2007, CMAS directly oversees the following main competitions at the international level: the World Championship, the Continental Championships, and the World Cup. The World Championship has been held in odd years for senior swimmers starting from 2007 and in even years for junior swimmers from 2008. The pool competition is held over 5 days while the open water competition is held over a maximum of 3 days. Continental Championships are conducted in an identical manner to the World Championships and require a minimum of 5 countries from a continental body such as Africa, America, Asia, Europe or Oceania to participate. The Continental Championships have been held every 2 years in odd years for senior swimmers from 2008 and in even years for junior swimmers from 2007. The European Championships have been run since 1967, while the first Asian Finswimming Championships have been held since 1989. The World Cup is an annual event which was first held in 2006 and consists of a minimum of 3 rounds as well as a final round. Each round is known as a meeting and is attended by swimmers from clubs affiliated to a CMAS national federation. Races are held in both swimming pool and open water sites for both individuals and clubs. Finswimming has featured at the World Games as a trend sport since the inaugural games held during 1981. Participation is reserved for the best swimmers from the CMAS World Ranking, and the best relay teams are selected by the CMAS Finswimming Commission. The following are the age groups and the various restrictions for each age group. Structure of the sport. The organisations involved in governing the sport are the World Underwater Federation, or CMAS, the Sub-Aqua Association, or the SAA, and the British Finswimming Association, or the BFA. CMAS is an international federation that oversees and represents underwater activities and sports. The World Underwater Federation was founded in 1959 and now it is comprised of 130 federations from 5 continents. In addition to organising international underwater sport events, it is at the forefront of technical and scientific research and development. All international finswimming competitions take place under CMAS regulations. Information about the Finswimming Commission of CMAS, including rules, events calendar, historical results and records, can be found by the following link. The Sub-Aqua Association oversees the underwater sports in the UK and is affiliated with CMAS. The British Finswimming Association is the national governing body for the sport of finswimming in the UK. The association is fully registered with the Sub-Aqua Association, which is the only organisation registered with the World Underwater Federation for underwater sports in the UK. In order for UK clubs and members to participate in finswimming competitions both nationally and internationally, they must be affiliated with the British Finswimming Association, which provides the requirements and guidance for the affiliation process. Finswimming equipment. This section describes the equipment used in training sessions and at competitions. Snorkels. Centre or front mounted snorkels consist of a plastic tube, headband and an optional rubber mouthpiece. They can be of different shapes depending on the swimmer's preferences and the races. CMAS rules regulate snorkel dimensions. Only snorkels with a circular section and an interior diameter between 15mm and 23mm are permitted. The snorkel must also be within 430mm and 480mm in length, which must be measured inside the tube. The tip of the snorkel may be cut obliquely or with a round lip, but the length will be measured to the highest point. A snorkel does not contain a valve that lets water out from inside the snorkel. Therefore, the very first skill that finswimmers need to learn is how to clear the water from the snorkel and how to breathe through any remaining water. Junior snorkels. A junior snorkel consists of a narrower tube. This simplifies clearing water from the snorkel by younger children. The use of junior snorkels is recommended for ages 11 and younger. Senior snorkels. Senior snorkels can be of different shapes. For the most part, the choice of shape is down to individual finswimmers' preferences. There are also snorkels designed specifically for sprint and long distance races. Monofins. The monofin is a single fin for both legs. There is a range of monofin models used for different purposes. Rubber monofins are used for introducing the dolphin kick to children who are just starting the sport, but it can also help to develop kicking technique for more experienced swimmers as well. Training monofins are designed in the way such that the foot pockets attach with no angle to the blade. This is the main piece of training equipment used at training sessions. The training monofin comes with various blade sizes and with various stiffnesses. A softer monofin with a smaller blade is advisable for younger children or for training longer distances, whereas a bigger and harder blade is more suitable for senior swimmers and for training sprints. Competition monofins are usually designed so that there is an angle between the blade and the attached foot pockets. They are also called hyperfins. This type of fin improves the biomechanics of swimming and allows to achieve better results in the competition. They come in different stiffnesses, with softer fins more suited for the longer distances and harder fins better for sprints. Hyperfins are produced from two types of materials, fiberglass and carbon fiber. Generally, fiberglass hyperfins are slightly cheaper and more durable, but those made from carbon fiber can deliver better performance. Carbon fiber fins are more fragile and need to be used with care when diving off blocks and doing tumble turns. Bifins. Bifins or stereofins are worn with one fin on each foot. Finswimming bifins are usually bigger than the ones typically used in swimming sessions. This is because they are designed to deliver higher speeds in races. The technique of swimming in bifins is effectively front crawl. Virtually any type of bifins can be used at training sessions. However, in any competition running under CMAS rules, only certain makes of bifins are permitted. Masks. There are no specific rules governing what should be worn to cover the eyes in training sessions or competitions. Whereas many prefer to use goggles, some finswimmers prefer to use masks. Masks can provide better vision and also cover the nose, which some finswimmers find convenient. Air cylinders. In finswimming, air cylinders or bottles are used for the immersion events. There are different sizes of cylinders which are used for different distances. A 1 litre bottle is used for the 100 meters and a 4 litre bottle for the 400 meters. This is because a bigger cylinder produces more resistance in the water, and therefore the smaller ones are used in sprints to reduce this effect. Air cylinders are subject to regular checks to comply with health and safety regulations. Most fin swimming equipment is manufactured outside of the UK. There are a number of online shops that sell the equipment. shop.monofin.co.uk is the UK-based online store. There is no formula to fin swimming training, and there is as much art in it as science, but there are some general principles of training that can assist in maximising the opportunities available. Each individual is different and will respond to training in a unique way. This principle should extend to age, gender, event, and training status. Attempts to duplicate the programs of champions will result in incorrect intensities of training for most individuals. The capacity to respond to training is related to the initial level of fitness and the physiological characteristics of each individual fin swimmer. The potential for improvements is greatest when the initial level of fitness is lowest, because when a fin swimmer is not fit, then performance improvements will be obvious and substantial with the onset of training. When a fin swimmer is fit, performance improvements will be small and relatively infrequent. Training has an effect on the human body. Indeed, the purpose of training is to have the desired effect on the body, or more specifically, its processes. Placing the systems in the body under stress will produce responses associated with the type of training performed. For example, an adaptation to aerobic training is a reduced submaximal heart rate for a given workload. Some adaptations take place in a matter of days, while others may take weeks or months. For effective training adaptations, there must be the correct training, the correct nutrition for growth and repair of tissues, and sufficient rest for growth and repair to take place. Probably the most important principle of all is the concept of overload in training. In order for adaptations to take place, the stress on the body systems must be significant enough for physiological changes to occur. That is, they must be greater than usual. The same stimuli will not provoke continued improvements, and therefore the principle of overloading must be applied. Systematic planning is often coupled with overload as a double impact principle. Too much load at once could result in overtraining or injury, and too little could result in no improvements being made. The systematic treatment of training programs in a structured and progressive manner is a result of careful and periodic planning by good coaches. An often forgotten principle of training is rest and regeneration. Most training programs are founded on the basis of work and the various categories and intensities thereof. But smart coaches also consider recovery-based training. It could actually mean that the fin swimmer trains harder because they have recovered fully, rather than having residual fatigue from too much work too often. The recovery time from heavy training or intense competitions is longer in some fin swimmers than in others. Specificity is another fairly obvious principle. It is easy to note that regular basketball practice will not improve a fin swimmer's performance. There is no evidence to support that training front crawl with bifins benefits dolphin kick with a monofin and vice versa. Coaches should consider the following principle of specificity: the event, the target speed, and the energy system demands of these combined. As far as technique is concerned, the greater the range of opportunities given to fin swimmers, the greater the likelihood that they will improve. In training for physical capacity, the use of the variation principle should be as a motivational tool. Reversibility is more obvious after a period away from training, as fin swimmers discover how hard it is to gain fitness over a period of time, but how easy it is to lose it much more quickly. Associated most closely with the principles of rest, recovery, and variation, this principle recognizes that you can't do everything at once. Applying training principles successfully requires as much skill as it does science, and the principle of balance is where the coach can be creative in the design and implementation of training. According to leading sports scientist and excellence researcher K. Anders Ericsson of Florida State University, it takes 10 years or 10,000 hours of extensive practice to excel in sports. Even over a 10-year period, this is 3 to 4 hours per day of deliberate practice. There are two main styles of swimming with fins: swimming with monofin, which takes dolphin kick, and swimming with bifins, which takes front crawl. Swimming with monofin. The body is in the streamlined position with arms positioned just above the swimmer's ears. The arms are very narrow with no space between the shoulders and the head. The swimmer moves along an undulating trajectory. The arms, torso, and legs perform oscillating motions along a vertical direction. The amplitude of these oscillations is minimal for the arms and maximal for the legs. In the modern technique of monofin swimming, stability and rigidity of the upper body is sought after as it guarantees a better movement through the water and minimizes any external resistance. There is no fundamental difference in the technique between surface and immersion events. Swimming with bifins. The head is positioned with the waterline around the natural hairline with the eyes looking forward and down. The head must remain still in order to maintain balance and rhythm. Shoulders remain at the surface and roll with the arms. The hips also roll with strokes and are closer to the water surface, whereas the legs are fully submerged in the water together with the fins. Hands and feet must work together during the swimming stroke as this gives the body its efficiency, allowing it to move smoothly through the water. Most of the power is produced by the fins. Frequent and deep kicks by straight legs deliver the best performance. Breathing and snorkel. Finswimmers use a snorkel in most of the competition events and training. Therefore, the skill of breathing through a snorkel needs to be developed from the beginning. The main difficulties are water getting into the snorkel while swimming, correctly positioning the snorkel between the arms in the streamlined position, and diving with the snorkel. Timing. It is good practice to time Finswimmers periodically on different distances to measure their progress and assess the effectiveness of training programs. These times can be compared with age records maintained on the following site, monofin.co.uk/agerecords.php. Training zones. The importance of training zones in swimming is based on the existence of various methods to replenish energy in the muscles during exercise. The most important are aerobic, non-aerobic, and anaerobic metabolism. Metabolism is the process of storing and releasing energy. Aerobic maintenance is used for warm-up and swim down and base conditioning and drills. Anaerobic threshold is used for aerobic capacity training, but it is not good for technical work. Aerobic overload is used for cardiovascular training, and VO2 refers to the ability to utilize oxygen. Lactate production is for high-effort swims with an active recovery and anaerobic capacity training. Lactate tolerance is for high effort with an incomplete recovery, but at least 48 hours of recovery is needed. And basic speed is for maximum speed short swims, which trains explosiveness and power training. World and continental records are maintained by CMAS and separated into senior and junior categories for long course competitions only. www.cmas.org/finswimming/Finswimming Records. The British national records in Finswimming are recognised separately for senior and junior categories both for long and short course. monofin.co.uk/nationalrecords.php. In the UK, the records for the individual age categories are maintained for both long and short course events. monofin.co.uk/agerecords.php. All coaches must be aware of the risks related to the activity in hand. Both vigilance and awareness are essential. Coaches have a general responsibility to the welfare of those under their supervision. The main hazards are, under equipment, monofin blades, diving blocks, racing cylinders, snorkels, and bifins, and under training, hyperventilation, apnea training, nitrogen narcosis, pneumothorax, and general training injuries. Health and safety, monofin blades. A possible source of third-party lacerative injuries. The mitigations are to reduce the numbers per lane to less than or equal to 8/16 finswimmers in a 25 metre or 50 metre pool respectively, to organise finswimmers of similar abilities into groups and allocate a lane to each group. This will prevent unnecessary overtaking. To indicate clearly to other pool users that they are not to enter the training lane, and to make sure that rubber strips are fixed to the sides of the training monofins. Possible damage to tiles. The mitigations are to use proper fiberglass monofins. Monofins made in the correct manner do not crack tiles as the blade absorbs the impact and dissipates its heat and sound. Do not alter or fix monofins with metal or other materials as that may damage the tiles. A possible source of tendinitis in ankle and foot joint structures. The mitigations are to advise finswimmers when to take off monofins and the use of soft bifins or no fin swimming for recovery set before and after monofin use. Soreness during and after use of monofins. Some finswimmers feel pain after a short period as the rubber grips the foot. The continued use of a monofin will normalise this effect. Health and safety diving from blocks. A possible source of spinal injuries. Finswimmers are required to pass the BFA safe entry into the water procedure before they are allowed to use racing starts from diving blocks. Immersion events require extra procedures related to handling the additional equipment. No diving into pools of a depth of less than 0.9 meters. Falling onto poolside. The mitigations are correct training, as stated before, and to place a wet towel on a block to prevent slipping. This increases the grip on the block. Health and safety, racing cylinders. A possible source of compressed gas injuries. The mitigations are good coaching to maintain equipment correctly and safely within the guidelines of the BFA and CMAS, and all finswimmers competing or training in immersion are required to pass the BFA immersion procedure before they can use the equipment, which includes safe entry into a pool from a racing block. A possible explosive decompression of a cylinder. The mitigations are to maintain equipment correctly and safely within the guidelines of the BFA and CMAS, and to follow BFA, CMAS and HSE advice on cylinder care. Cylinders being used in competition and training should be tested and certified for a hydrostatic test every 2 years. The cylinders must be checked for this stamp by the club's safety officer. A possible source of blunt trauma injury. The coach controls cylinders on poolside and continues to advise finswimmers on the correct method for managing and handling cylinders, and the finswimmer must maintain the correct distance between them and the finswimmer in front. Damage to tiles as a result of cylinder impact on tiles. The mitigations are to place a cylinder mat on poolside to lay the cylinders on, and to coach the finswimmer on correct turning and finishing techniques. Health and safety, snorkels. A possible source of drowning. The mitigations are to not use valve snorkels, and training the correct use of snorkels and to advise on the correct snorkel to purchase. Health and safety, bifins. A possible source of third-party blunt trauma injuries. The mitigations are to reduce the numbers per lane to less than or equal to 8/16 finswimmers in a 25 metre or 50 metre pool respectively, to organise finswimmers of similar abilities into groups and to allocate a lane to each group. This will prevent unnecessary overtaking, and to indicate clearly to other pool users that they are not to enter the training lane. Health and safety, blackout. A possible source of drowning from hyperventilation. Extended breath holding, preceded by excessive hyperventilation, is safe if it is limited to the equivalent of no more than 2 full ventilatory exchanges. A possible source of drowning from apnea training. BFA standards state that a coach should not set more than 8x25 or 4x50 meter apnea repeats in a training set, with a minimum of 45 seconds rest after each repeat. If 2 sets follow, back to back, then the coach should allow for at least 1 minute 30 seconds of rest after the first set. The maximum number of sets per training session should be 4. BFA and CMAS regulations state that the maximum distance covered in individual repeats should be 50 meters. Avoid sets containing 50-meter apnea repeats if the finswimmer was engaged in intense sports activities such as competitive running or swimming within 12 hours before the session. Health and safety, nitrogen narcosis. A possible source of neurological illness and possible death. Immersion training and racing should not take place in a pool of over 4 meters maximum depth. There is little risk of this injury in a standard pool given the length of time taken for most immersion sets or races. The maximum length of time a finswimmer should be in immersion, i.e. completely submerged without surfacing, at a depth of 2 meters is 2 hours. This is unlikely as no one would be able to carry a cylinder big enough to be able to do this, and leaving cylinders on the floor of a pool to be picked up during the set is not conducive to training. Health and safety, pneumothorax. A source of serious lung failure, air embolisms and possible death. Immersion training and racing should not take place in a pool of over 4 meters maximum depth. There is little risk of this injury in a standard pool given the length of time taken for most immersion sets or races. The maximum length of time a finswimmer should be in immersion, that is, completely submerged without surfacing, at a depth of 2 meters is 2 hours. This is unlikely as no one would be able to carry a cylinder big enough to be able to do this, and leaving cylinders on the floor of a pool to be picked up during the set is not conducive to training. Health and safety, general training injuries. A source of trauma injuries. Coaches should enforce the counter-rotation system as per BFA guidance, and to follow the guidance for lane numbers previously given. A possible source of training injuries. Clubs should make sure that their coaches achieve the BFA Finswimming Coach certificate or higher. Any volunteers should be encouraged to take the BFA Assistant Finswimming Coach certificate or higher. Coaches have a general responsibility to the welfare of those individuals under their supervision. They should research and advise their finswimmers on the correct methods for stretching, drills and stroke. Restrictions. There are some restrictions put in place for those who have only achieved BFA Assistant Finswimming Coach. They must always work under the supervision of a BFA Finswimming Coach or higher. They must not teach starts off the diving block independently. They must not teach breathing and breath hold exercises independently. Must not teach speed sub-aqua independently. And must not teach starts off the diving block with an air cylinder. Thank you for watching and listening to the BFA Assistant Finswimming Coach course.